2016. A man once paid $20 million per film, a global brand ambassador, a name synonymous with box office reliability for 2 decades, watches his career effectively stop within months of a single public allegation. By 2022, the same man is standing in a Virginia courtroom, on camera, for 6 straight weeks, in a defamation trial the entire world is watching live. What happened between those 2 points is one of the most extensively documented public falls and partial recoveries in modern Hollywood history, and almost none of the popular retelling gets the actual timeline and legal outcomes right. Welcome to the Fame Files, where we pull back the curtain on how power actually works in entertainment. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what the legal record actually established, what remains genuinely disputed, and why the public narrative shifted so dramatically between 2016 and 2022. Here's the documented timeline. In May 2016, Amber Heard filed for divorce from Johnny Depp and obtained a temporary restraining order alleging domestic violence. Depp denied the allegations. The divorce was finalized in early 2017 with a financial settlement and no formal admission of wrongdoing by either party in that proceeding. Following the initial allegations, Depp's career suffered immediate, well-documented consequences. Disney did not renew him for further Pirates of the Caribbean films, and several other planned projects reportedly distanced themselves from him during this period, based on industry reporting from entertainment trade publications tracking the fallout in real time. The next major documented event was a 2018 opinion piece Heard wrote for The Washington Post, in which she described herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse without naming Depp directly. Depp's legal team argued the piece was clearly understood by the public to reference him and that it caused specific, quantifiable professional damage. This led Depp to file a defamation lawsuit against Heard in Virginia in 2019, seeking $50 million in damages. Before that American case reached trial, there was a separate, earlier legal proceeding in the United Kingdom worth understanding, because its outcome is frequently left out of popular retellings. In 2020, Depp sued the Sun newspaper in the UK for defamation after it referred to him as a wife-beater in a headline. UK defamation law places the burden of proof differently than US law. The publisher has to prove the allegedly defamatory claim was substantially true, rather than the claimant needing to prove it was false. The UK judge ruled against Depp, finding that 12 of 14 specific alleged incidents of violence toward Heard were, in the judge's assessment, more likely than not to have occurred. That is a real, documented legal finding, decided under a specific legal standard, by a judge who heard extensive evidence from both sides. 2 years later, the U.S. defamation trial produced a different outcome, under different legal rules, and before a jury, rather than a judge. In June 2022, the Virginia jury found in Depp's favor, awarding him roughly $10 million in compensatory damages and $350,000 in punitive damages, after finding that specific statements in Heard's op-ed defamed him. The jury also found in Heard's favor on one narrower counterclaim regarding a statement made by Depp's own attorney, awarding her $2 million. Both parties ultimately settled the remaining appeal process in December 2022, with Heard paying Depp roughly $1 million, a figure Depp stated he would donate to charity. The public and media reaction to each verdict is itself a documented phenomenon worth examining, because it shaped the popular narrative more than the legal findings themselves did. The 2020 UK ruling received comparatively modest US media coverage and social media attention at the time, largely because UK court proceedings don't automatically dominate American entertainment news cycles the way a televised US trial does. The 2022 Virginia trial, by contrast, was live-streamed in its entirety, generated enormous social media engagement in real time, and produced a wave of viral commentary, much of it partisan and simplified, well before the jury reached its verdict. Media researchers who studied the coverage gap between the 2 proceedings have pointed to this asymmetry, one case unfolding in relatively low-visibility written judgments, the other unfolding as televised courtroom drama with camera-friendly witness testimony, as a major factor in why so much of the public only became aware of the earlier UK finding well after forming strong opinions based primarily on the more visible American trial. Here's the part that requires real care, because these 2 verdicts are frequently presented as flatly contradicting each other when the more accurate framing is more specific. The UK case and the US case asked different legal questions, applied different legal standards, and were decided by different fact-finders, a single judge in one case, a 12-person American jury in the other, reviewing overlapping but not identical bodies of evidence, under different rules about what needs to be proven and by whom. A UK judge finding it more likely than not that certain incidents occurred is a real, legally significant finding under UK civil law's standard. A US jury unanimously finding that a specific op-ed passage was defamatory, made with actual malice or the required legal standard for the claim, and caused specific professional damage, is also a real, legally significant finding under the different standard American defamation law applies. Legal scholars who've written on the case since 2022 have generally cautioned against treating either verdict as a complete, universal ruling on who was right, because both were narrower, more technical legal findings than the wall-to-wall media coverage tended to suggest. It's also worth explaining, in slightly more depth, exactly why defamation as a legal claim is narrower than it sounds in everyday conversation, because that gap is where a lot of public confusion about this case specifically originates. A defamation verdict does not require a court to determine, comprehensively, everything that did or didn't happen in a relationship. It requires the court or jury to evaluate specific, individually alleged statements, in this case, specific sentences from Heard's op-ed, and separately, a specific public statement made by Depp's attorney against a legal standard for falsity, harm, and in the U.S. case, the required showing of fault. A jury can conclude a specific sentence was false and defamatory without that verdict functioning as a comprehensive ruling on every disputed event in a years-long relationship, and legal commentators covering the case specifically flagged this distinction as one of the most commonly misunderstood aspects of the entire proceeding once the verdict became a global news story. What happened to Depp's career after 2022 is itself well documented and worth including for completeness. He returned to acting with a supporting role in a French-produced film, Jean du Barry, that debuted at the Cannes Film Festival in 2023 and has continued smaller-scale acting and music projects since. He has not returned to the scale of blockbuster franchise leading roles he held before 2016, and industry analysts have noted that major studios have generally remained cautious about him in large-budget franchise casting decisions independent of the trial's outcome, reflecting ongoing brand and public perception considerations that operate somewhat separately from the strict legal findings. It's worth being precise about what's fully established versus what remains genuinely contested. What's documented, the divorce filing and allegations, the UK ruling and its specific finding on 12 of 14 incidents, the US jury verdict and specific dollar amounts, and the eventual settlement. What remains genuinely disputed and likely permanently unresolvable through further legal proceedings at this point. The full, granular truth of every specific incident described across both cases, since the two proceedings reached different formal conclusions under different legal frameworks, rather than one clearly superseding the other as the final word. There's one more documented detail worth including because it's frequently omitted. The December 2022 settlement of Heard's appeal specifically avoided a second, potentially lengthy appellate proceeding that legal analysts widely expected could have taken well over a year to resolve and could have revisited jury instructions and evidentiary rulings from the original trial. Both parties issued public statements at the time, framing the settlement as a way to move forward rather than continue litigating, and Depp's public statement specifically noted the case had never been about the money for him, while directing his settlement proceeds to charitable causes. Settlements of this kind are common in high-profile defamation cases, specifically because continued appellate litigation carries real financial and reputational cost for both sides, regardless of who ultimately might prevail on appeal, which is a separate consideration from the underlying merits of either party's case. This case has become a frequently cited example in discussions of how celebrity legal disputes get flattened by media coverage into a single simple narrative: he was cleared or she was believed, when the actual legal record is two separate, technically distinct proceedings that answered two separate, technically distinct legal questions, each under its own country's specific rules of evidence and proof. So the next time you see a headline claiming a celebrity legal case proves something definitively, Remember Depp versus Heard, 2 verdicts, 2 legal systems, 2 different questions actually being asked, and a public conversation that rarely slowed down long enough to notice the difference. What celebrity story do you want us to dig into next? Tell us in the comments and subscribe to the Fame Files. We pull back the curtain and show you exactly what the record actually says.